Hello, this is Jeff cleaning out a Lobster Elite 1 ball machine in preparation for installing a remote kit purchased from Amazon. This particular unit had a remote installed at the factory whose transmitter went bad. I'm leaving in that system and installing the new kit to work alongside it. Because of that and my amateur production values, this video does run long. I have one ball machine and cannot shoot multiple takes for many sections. I did publish a tutorial to which I'll leave a link below in the description. Get in sync with your DIY self and stay tuned. I have in my hand the bolts that secure the control panel. The panel comes off easily, and now I'm going to blow out the tennis ball dust. As I do that, observe the wires coming out of the back of the panel. Later in this video, I'll refer to the back side of the panel as the circuit board. We've cleaned the machine out. Now we've got the power switch on the front panel here, and the three wires coming out of the back of the power switch. One of those wires supplies power to the panel here. We're going to figure out which one of these wires we can interrupt and stop the whole works. So let's turn the machine on. I don't know if you can hear the motors, the throwing motors going yet, but they just turned on. And you'll hear them a little bit more if I turn up the velocity. But I'm going to turn that down. And now you can see right up here that the feed motor and the feed tray has started going. On my own machine, this is my brother's machine, I just disconnected the middle wire of the three behind the power switch, and that turned off everything. That is the motors throwing the balls and the motor turning the feed tray. So I'm going to pull that off, the middle wire, and that turned off everything. And that means that I can interrupt this wire and interpose the our radio frequency receiver here so that I can use the transmitter to turn off the entire machine. We went to get supplies at Home Depot. We got spade terminal, appropriate for the size wire, and the size wire is a 16 gauge. This is a 16 gauge wire with a red and a black inside of each, and they didn't have single wires with that was stranded at 16 gauge, so we just bought the two pieces of gray wire, 24 inches. Inside of each of these casings is a red wire and a green wire. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a utility knife, cut the casing. I don't know if you can see this. Okay, we've got a little split there. Now you can see it has a red and a black. I hope you can see that.
And what we'll do is we'll pull the red out of this one. We'll take the other wire and pull the black one out. So we'll have a wire left inside here, the black wire left inside here with a gray casing, and we'll have the red wire inside here with a gray casing. So essentially we have our two gray wires, and we'll have a red wire and a black wire. I'm going to do that and come back. Well, here I've got the two gray wires, one with a black wire inside, and from which I pulled a red wire out. And then I have the other gray wire with the red wire inside, from which I pulled out the black wire. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my stripping tool to strip off about a 1/4 inch. I'll see you in the next section. Here's the black wire and a spade terminal. We're just going to go ahead and crimp that ahead of time. Here again is the control panel. I'm going to pull this out again. This is the gray wire that we took apart earlier. It was just sitting right here in the middle between this other gray wire and the red wire in this position. Okay, we took that off, and you can't really see very well, but this wire that I'm pointing to with my thumb says top serve. This is bottom servo. You can't really see the sign, which is right here. And this pair of wires between my thumb and forefinger are the wires that go to the elevation motors that determine the height of ejection of the balls, the angle of ejection. And this motor, this pair of wires actually says sweep at the tip of my thumb. You can't really read the print very well. It's really hard to see. Okay, so this is a sweep pair of wires that goes as a sweep motor, which does this horizontal thing, left and right, and then this pair of wires has a label that says feed. I don't know if you could see that. And we'll interrupt one of these two wires. Okay? This is the remote control kit. I'm going to open the package. 1, 2, 3, 4 transmitters. Okay. Instructions. The remote itself. Let's see if I can figure out how to open this. I'll come back to you. The way this remote comes apart is you could stick a letter opener in this little gap right here in the middle. Now you have the remote.
and the little antenna. Okay, and you have the terminals for power, and you can't really see it very well. Let me see if, okay, if I turn this right side up, oh, that's right upside down. You can see it says, these are for the power coming in, positive, positive and negative. And these are for the terminals to control the entire machine. And we're going to connect this. This is going to be associated with number 4. It's going to be associated with button A. Number 3 by my thumb is going to be associated with button B. And to the left of my thumb, number 2 is going to be associated with button C. Here's where I take the wire from the back of the power switch. Here, the middle wire. I'm going to remove that. This is the power switch. I'm going to remove the middle wire. And now I'm going to cut it right in the middle, or a little bit this side of the middle, so I won't have too much trouble stripping the end that's closer to the circuit board. And I can just remove it from the circuit board, actually. I think that's probably going to work a little bit better for me. So I'll remove that from the circuit board, and I'll get back to you in a second. So here's the wire from the middle that I removed from the circuit board. And I don't know if you can tell where it came from in the circuit board. It's right in between this and this plug wires, those two wires. Okay, I don't know if you could see that better here. Okay. This is where it came from, right here. Okay. Now I'm going to take this wire that came from the middle of the back of the power switch, cut it in half. I'm gonna crimp it, gonna strip it 1/4 inch. I'll get back to you when I've done stripping both ends. Okay, what I've done here a little bit ahead of time is take a gray wire, okay, and a red wire, and connected it to the wire that comes out of the back of the power switch. I don't know, that's easier. Okay, there you go. And that's what I have here, okay? So I'm going to plug that back into the back of the power switch over here. I don't know if you can see that. That's going to be right in the middle right there. Here's the red wire attached to the V plus part of the receiver. So here's the receiver for the remote, and in my hand here is the wire that I crimped the spade terminal to, and the bare wire goes into
the terminal, the V plus, V minus terminal, right here, right next to the red wire. And do that and I'll return in just a moment. As you'll recall, this red wire is attached to the gray wire that comes from the back of the power switch of the control panel. And that will provide power going to the receiver. To complete the circuit, we had to run the black wire, and we attached that, and we're going to attach this spade terminal to the chassis of the machine. In the next part, we'll look for that part, part on the chassis where we'll attach it. Here in my left hand is the spade terminal coming from the receiver, and now we're going to look inside the Lobster ball machine, and we can see right away a very good place to loosen a screw and attach the spade terminal. We're going to do that, and I'll get back to you in a second. So here we've attached the black wire to the chassis of the machine, and now we're going to take a look at the power switch here. Okay, so here's the receiver, and we're going to flip on the power with my index finger. If you look at the receiver, you can see that the red light has illuminated, meaning that the receiver has power. This is the receiver that we just added power to, which we proved that we have power. And now we are going to use the gray wire to attach to coming from the back of the power switch, and we've got one gray wire coming out of the back of the power switch. We're going to stick it in by my thumb to the fourth terminal, and we're going to bring another gray wire coming out of there and back to the short wire on the circuit board at the tip of my index finger right here. Okay, this is the wire that we cut earlier that came out of the back of the power switch. So I'll show that to you when I'm done fixing it. This is the receiver, and this is the wire that comes from the back of the power switch of the control panel. We're going to stick it into the number 4 terminal, and we're going to stick it into NC4. Okay, that's in there securely. And to make it more securely, I'm going to tighten the screw. Okay, now I'm going to stick the free gray wire into the COM part right here. This is the middle part. There's NO4, COM4, and NC4. NC4 we've already used. Now we're going to use COM4. So that's the middle one here. We're going to stick that in there. Okay. Tighten that. Give it a good tug. Yeah, that's good. Okay, great. Now the other end of this free wire, free gray wire, will attach to the circuit, to the gray wire that we cut earlier from the back of the power terminal, power switch, and that will connect to the other cut end that attaches to the circuit board of the control panel. And to make that easier, I'm going to use the needle nose plier, pull off the terminal, pull the wire off the terminal, and just plug it so that I can connect the two gray wires together. Okay. So now I'm going to get a wire nut. Here. Okay, bring these together. Twist them together a tiny bit. Push the wire nut on. Turn it until it stops turning. And now, these are nice and secure. Now I can plug this back into the circuit board. I'm going to use my needle nose pliers. I don't know if you can see that from there. Is that a good view? Okay, good. Okay. Okay, and make it a little more secure. Give it a tiny little push more. Okay, good. Now what we'll do, we've got power to the receiver, and we've also interposed the receiver between the power switch and the circuit board. Okay, so let's flip this on. So we've got power to the receiver, and now you can hear the ball throwing motors. And now I've got one of my transmitters. And now you can also see the feed tray rotating. Now I've got a transmitter. I'm just going to press A, and it just turns everything off. These are the wires that go to the feed motor. We're going to interrupt here and extend it to the receiver. And the receiver will control the feed motor and be able to turn it off during a hitting session. Yeah. Go. We're going to cut the red wire to the feed motor. And then I'm going to attach a green wire to each of the ends of the red wire. One green wire to each, using a wire nut. Right now I'm just going to strip them. And when we're done with this, we'll connect it to the receiver. So here's one green wire connected to one of the feed motor red wires. Here's the other feed motor red wire.
connect it to the other green wire. And the feed motor will be controlled by button B on the transmitter. And the corresponding terminal for button B on the receiver is going to be above my middle finger here. NO3, COM3, NC3. And since we want this to be connected when the machine is first turned on, we're going to connect it to NC3 because we want the feed motors to run as soon as the machine is on, as soon as the machine says they can run. So we're going to stick this one into NC3. Okay, it's right here. Tighten that. It doesn't matter which one. You can put this into either the COM3 or the NC3, but the other one, one of them goes to the NC3 on the right, and the other one goes into COM3 in the middle. Okay, this left, middle, right. Okay, and this is where this one's going. One of the wires has to go into COM3. Okay. So now that we've got this attached, we can actually turn the machine on. And you can see here that the receiver has power. And you can hear the ball throwing motors. In about 15 seconds, you will hear and see the feed tray motor turning the feed tray. And we said that button B controls this, so we're going to press button B and we're going to stop the feed motor. The reason that the motor started up again when I released my finger from the transmitter button was because the receiver is set for a momentary stop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an adjustment on the receiver, and on the receiver you'll see a jumper that connects a couple of pins, and I'll show you when I continue. This is the receiver, and to have your buttons toggle so buttons work so that one press keeps the adjustment, you need to move this little jumper to connect the little pin here that's marked S, adjacent to the S, to the pin adjacent to the T. And we'll do that next. This is the jumper that connects the T and the S pins. And I'm going to remove it and connect the T and the S pins. And you can see that bottom two pins, delicate operation. Let's try this again with a different aspect. Okay, good. There we go.
Excellent. Now we're going to test that again by turning on the power to the machine. And right away you can see that we have power again to the receiver. And you can hear the motors, the throwing motors running. And in about 15 seconds, you'll hear the feed motor running and you'll see the feed tray turning. Now here's the transmitter. And we're going to press B. And this time, because we put that jumper connecting pins T and S, the feed tray stopped and stayed stopped when we released the button. When we press button B again, the feed tray goes, even after we release pressure on button. Now that we've established the connection for the feed motors, we'll now establish control of the horizontal sweep motor that moves the machine left and right. And we determined earlier by looking at the labels on these wires that these two wires go to the sweep motors. And so we are going to interrupt the red wire. And it could be either the red wire or the black wire. We just chose to interrupt the red wire just for consistency. So we're going to cut that.
How many people can afford a machine?
Cut that, and then we're going to strip so we cut that. Go. Yep. We cut that, and now we're going to strip a 1/4 inch off of each end. And this time we're going to attach a white wire to each end of the cut red wire. And we're going to put these together with wire nuts. That's one wire. Here's another wire. And we'll connect that to the other red wire, red wire.
You did fresh line?
There's always a helpful person around, and that's my mom. Now we have two wires coming from the red wires that go to the sweep motors. And we're going to connect these to the receiver. And we're going to connect it to number 2, just above my left thumb. And since we want this to not be running when the machine turns on, we're going to connect it to COM2 and NO2. So going to connect it to the one on the middle, one wire to the one in the middle, and one wire to the one on the left. Okay? Middle, left. So here we go. This one goes to the middle, COM2, and with this one we'll go to NO2. NO2 means these things are, that the red wires are not connected, okay? And so we will turn that just like that. Okay. And now we're going to test this. See what happens here. I'll turn on the power switch here. And right away, you're going to see that we have power to the receiver. You can hear their throwing motors going. And if I bring the remote out and press C, nothing happens unless I press the on button for the horizontal motion. Still nothing happens. Okay, we're gonna have to work this out. The reason that didn't work was that the original remote for the machine had the sweep turned off. And so what we did was we pressed the button to turn the sweep back on, and now if we press C, that turns on the sweep motors. So we're good. If this machine did not already have a remote in it, then it would not have been able to have the sweep turned off by the remote. The sweep would have been on by default or by use of the switch. Therefore, in a machine without a remote already installed, this system will work just as we installed it. This is a video after the fact. I've taken the receiver and pushed all the way into the right side here, because on the left side you have the throwing motors, and I don't want the receiver or any of the wires to get caught up in the throwing motors. So everything went into the right side. I'm going to bolt on the control panel, and I'm done.